That's right. Okay, talking to Joe and Rob in the park. Okay, that was not too cool, but dizzier. Just a quick minute or two on state of the race. Today's Sunday after the debate and before the vice presidential debate. Joe first.
Boy, I have to say, I think we're in a lot better place now than we were a couple weeks ago, and I think a lot of that has to do with John McCain himself. His campaign seems to be self-destructing. His behavior has been completely erratic. He's been bizarre.
But why now versus before?
Well, I think what's happened is, I think McCain always...
I mean, they were doing well a couple weeks, in a scary way a couple weeks ago, right?
They
were fighting back with the Steve Schmidt, Karl Rove guy and all that crap.
To me, it all changed when the issues got so serious about the economy, and when McCain said the fundamentals of the economy are strong, that Monday morning, I think it changed everything.
But did it freak them out because they got caught?
Well, I think they weren't prepared, and I think McCain has been acting. I think McCain is being McCain right now. I think we're seeing the true John McCain. But I also think, and I've got to give Obama credit. Obama has seized on this. He was very presidential in debate the other night, and I actually think Obama looks like he's having fun on the campaign trail now. He's mocking McCain. Right. I think he's gotten under McCain's skin. I think that's why McCain wouldn't look at him the other night.
Right, Rob.
You know, we had a cataclysmic event in the economy, and I think that what we saw this week was the two distinct differences. Joe talked about how erratic John McCain's been. The American public knows some serious stuff has gone down, and I think they're looking to see who's going to lead them forward. And I think this week that contrast was very, very clear. And I think that's what's been lacking. And when we were talking about lipstick and all these other stupid things, a lot of people were like, there's so much more important things to discuss. This week we got back onto those
There was
topics.
no way to avoid the serious stuff because
you
you'd look like an idiot not talking about the crisis.
Correct. And so it's hard to do distraction. And that's really what McCain's campaign has been for a while. Really, since Palin, it's been about distraction. It really hasn't been about issues. It hasn't been about the public. And so this week, all of those things kind of finally caught up to McCain. And I think we actually finally saw Obama be able to stand up at the debate and look like a president. And that's the part that he needs to do to close the deal. If he can close the deal with the public, all this McCain stuff will go away. And the real question is the public ready to buy Barack Obama? And I think this week we saw more of that.
How much does the early... Actually, just get together so I can talk to both of you. But I mean, how much does the early voting stuff matter? We always worry about that every time. Is it a third of the electorate this time is going to vote early, or what's the?
Yeah, I think a lot of states have early voting, which basically means anyone can vote. You don't need a reason to vote absentee early.
But you just mail in a ballot or something,
right.
or
okay? No, you go to a place. I think one of the things about early voting is that you get the committed voters, and you get people who are charged up, and a lot has to do with organization.
Right.
And the one thing we keep hearing is how great the organization is of the Obama campaign in some of these key states.
But what's the danger in terms of
I think
the election being today and not in 3 weeks?
Well, today I think we're seeing is that the numbers are looking good for Obama. I think his people are really clued. I think his people are charged up.
The big wheel in the park or whatever.
I think his people are charged up, which is important.
Right.
But the other thing is, once you get your early voters, once you get your people going, then you can really start focusing on persuading the people who haven't decided yet. And I think that's the best thing that happens now.
I think so too. And it was interesting. We saw some polling this morning from Diageo Hotline that said that among independent voters and those voters who are still undecided, John McCain's favorable numbers have just really plummeted in the last week. So for those that are early
he's now
voting,
more unfavorable than favorable,
more
right?
unfavorables and unfavorables. For those that are early voting, some people may decide at some point they may want to take that vote back, and they can't.
And these were independents,
really,
I'm sorry, or what?
It is the activists. The poll wasn't the independents yet.
Oh, that's good, okay.
This really is just, it is the activists getting an opportunity to just get it done and get it done quickly. And if you've been able to ID those people, as Obama has for the last few months, you should be able to really make sure you get another 1 or 2 points out of an election, and that may be the margin in some of the states.
Is there any danger of the economy going away as an issue? Because if they reach this deal the next day or so, does that mean...
Not in a million years. This is just the beginning of a very
Actually, last night friends were telling me about another big bank here in town whose stock, or I should say in the area, whose stock has been plummeting this week. So
this is just the beginning. Little Baltimore has a company called Constellation Energy, which owns a major utility, and that company had to get bought in distress, totally because of energy trading. It's completely separate from the mortgage crisis, completely separate from subprime. This is a substantial economic crisis that transcends just this last week's event.
So the headlines aren't going away for the next 3 weeks.
It is not going anywhere.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen is people are going to start getting their 401k statements.
Yes.
And
when do those? When will those come?
The end of the quarter is
that October
30th.
though, or is that?
They'll be getting them in the
in
next
October,
couple weeks.
I was going to say, I remember looking at it and every time going, okay.
Yeah. So that'll happen.
Yeah.
So people understand that this affects them.
Yep.
And this economy was brought to you by George Bush and John McCain.
Yep.
So there's no escaping it. I think that the other thing that happened through this crisis was John McCain was tied to George Bush completely.
Yes.
And I think Obama did a good job of that too.
And there was a deal, and then the Republicans in the House said no deal, and John McCain basically swooped in and said, okay, fine, we'll go with these guys for a little while. Made the problem worse.
Right.
And I think everyone in the consensus is that that's the last thing you were looking for out of leadership. You wanted leadership that was going to come in and steady your hand, and instead we saw a really erratic, kind of odd decision on McCain's part to potentially suspend his campaign, but not suspend his campaign. I think David Letterman this week did John McCain in. I think that was it. Once you had that, I think that was the end of it.
Right. When he showed the video of John McCain getting his makeup done after John McCain said he wasn't gonna, we had to fly back to Washington. That was deadly. That was deadly.
That was it.
And I think when you hear the words erratic being used over and over by a lot of people about McCain, it reinforces
particularly in a crisis.
Right. In a crisis.
And that's if this were just sort of any other election, maybe it could be considered passionate or decisive, but not in a crisis.
No, it's not good for McCain, and I don't see how they pull out of it. I mean, this guy doesn't seem to have the capacity. When he's at a debate, muttering under his breath, and he won't look at Obama, people see that. That's not the kind of behavior people want in a president. I think a lot of activists.
But he's got 2 more debates. He could turn it around.
Right,
I'm just saying, we're always sitting here worrying about what's going to,
Right.
something bad's going to happen in a week that turns it all around on us or whatever.
A lot of what people saw on Friday night was Barack Obama as a president. What they saw of John McCain was he was, following.
Get off my lawn!
It was a cranky old man. He wouldn't look at Obama. I mean, that's not what we wanted a president. So people want a leader right now.
Yeah.
So
particularly right now.
Yeah. So
okay.
I mean, who knows? I mean, the Republicans are capable of anything. They want to get back to distractions. I agree with Rob, though. It's hard to get into.
Are we ahead today? Last question.
Yes.
Rob, you weren't so sure earlier.
I'd say we are moderately ahead. I would not say we are